Part 33. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 321. Chapter 321 Auction 3. Yuan didn't have much interest in reading anymore. She took the auction book and flipped through it to see if there was anything else she liked. Mujukan, what is this, a map? She pulled Mujukan and pointed at the album and asked. Mujukan looked at it and found it strange. It was a map, but he didn't explain what it was. He said, let's take a look and see if the host can explain it. Okay, she was also curious, this auction house also auctioned everything. The auction item below is a map. I don't know what the pavilion is on it. According to the consignor, this map was obtained from an ancient monk's cave. So if you are interested, you can extend your hand. This map, the starting price is 1,000 spirit stones, the bidding begins. Mujukan, it's that map. Well, we're not in a hurry, it seems like no one is interested. Sure enough, there was a lot of discussion among the people in the hall, but no one made a bid. How can you take a picture of a map that you don't know anything about? I'm afraid the person who took the picture is too poor and crazy, a foundation building monk in the lobby said in a low voice, but all the monks could hear it. No, there are all kinds of people these days. Another monk shook his head and continued. Has anyone taken a photo? Maybe it's a treasure map. The hostess smiled and held up the map. Yuan looked at it and saw a piece of monster animal skin 1 foot square with some curved lines drawn on it, but there was really nothing else. Ha 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 ha, someone will want this thing and pay 1,000 spiritual stones. A monk couldn't help but laugh. The female cultivator in charge was also a little embarrassed. Unfortunately, no Taoist fellow disciples like it, so this 1,100 stones. Before the presiding female cultivator could finish her words, Mujukan shouted lightly. Shushuish wash wash, all the monks looked toward their private room. Unfortunately, there was a formation in the private room, and their spiritual consciousness could not enter. Haha, there is still a fellow Taoist who likes me. This fellow Taoist has a good eye for 1,100 spiritual stones. The host female cultivator banged the hammer. It's a pity that no one bids. The beautiful host used all the provocations, but no one gave him face. 1,100 spiritual stones twice. 1,100 spirit stones 3 times. Congratulations on being surrounded by number 6 on the 3rd floor, fellow Taoist. Please wait a moment, a waiter will bring it to you later. Here is the 31st auction item. When the map was delivered to the private room, Mujukan paid the spirit stone and the waiter left. Yuan took it and spread it on the table to watch carefully. Mujukan, why do the mountains drawn by these lines feel familiar? Her consciousness moved, and a map appeared on her hand. This was what she got when she was in the Great Yan Empire. She remembered that she picked up the Dabai Xiao Xiao. The White Cave. She had forgotten that it had been placed in the space. Looking at these lines now, she always felt familiar. Go back and take a look. Mujukan stopped her from spreading out. Oh. Yuan looked at Mujukan and saw that his face was indifferent. Then she thought of something and she immediately put it away. Then the two went on to watch the auction. The auction item below is a 4th order 7-star array. This array is an array that integrates offense and defense. It is suitable for monks to lay out caves and wild defenses. The starting price is 5,000 spiritual stones. The bidding begins. 6,000 spiritual stones. As soon as the hostess finished speaking, someone placed a bid for the private room on the 3rd floor. Is it so valuable for spiritual stones? Yuan asked. Mujukan nodded. He was a formation master, so he naturally understood the value of a 4th level formation disc. Yuan's brain changed. They both had a business of earning spiritual stones, so it was inevitable to open a shop here. In the past, when she opened a shop in Haoyu sect, she made a lot of money from those spiritual stones that were priced quite high. Unfortunately, the monsters attacked soon after. It's different here. The powerful monsters here are all in the Juya forest, and the level of immortal cultivation here is obviously higher than that of Xianling continent. There shouldn't be that kind of beast tide that happens once in 1,000 years. When Yuan looked at the auction table again, all the fourth order array discs were auctioned for 250,000 spirit stones. She also sighed that the spiritual stones here were so profitable, and she felt that the monks here looked like spiritual stones. The auction item below was temporarily entrusted by a fellow Taoist. This is a copy of the heavenly cultivation technique Kang Lang Ju. It is very suitable for the cultivation of monks with water spirit roots and ice spirit roots. If you are interested in it, please take it. Take action when it's time to take action. There will be no such store after this village. The starting price is 10,000 spirit stones. The bidding begins. It's a pity that all the heaven level skills are taken out for filming. Yuan shook her head. The skills practiced by monks are also divided into levels, heaven and earth, Xianhuang, and the heaven level is the highest. When Yuan was in Xianling continent, she compared those skills with the skills they practiced. To put it bluntly, the lower level skills are simpler. This simplicity mainly refers to the exercise route of this exercise. For example, the exercise route of Huangja involves fewer meridians and acupuncture points than the exercise route of Suanja. Naturally, there are fewer hours per day to perform the exercise. But one disadvantage is that the body's meridians and acupuncture points are less open, and the body's stored spiritual energy is correspondingly less. When fighting against humans, the power of Huang level skills is much smaller. Therefore, if monks of the same level fight against each other, the one who suffers will definitely be practicing the yellow level Kung Fu. So the most paper level skills in Yuan's space are also Xian level skills, but she won't put them up for auction. She was wondering what level of skill the skill in her consciousness belonged to. Are there any at the heaven level? The magic weapons all have fairy weapons and artifacts. She guessed that the level of star art was not low. It's a pity that she is the only one who can practice it. Even if she wants to write down the exercises, she can't. You want this technique? Yuan saw that Mujukan had already made a bid, and the price was now 150,000, with several people still bidding. Well, my little sister has water spirit roots. She has never had a suitable technique and her cultivation speed is very slow. This book is very suitable for her. Mujukan nodded and said. Yuan knew that the little sister he was talking about was Mu Shui from Mr. Mu's family. She still doesn't know that Mugxiu is Shuolingan. 200,000 spiritual stones, Mujukan bid again. 21,000 spiritual stones, someone caught up with him on the fourth floor. 250,000 spiritual stones, the person on the fifth floor bid. Mujukan squinted his eyes. Did someone not want him to be photographed happily? 400,000 spiritual stones, he didn't even think about shouting out. The hall was completely silent at this time. They only listened to the bidding at this level and were not qualified to discuss it. 450,000 spirit stones, someone said lazily. Mujukan didn't follow him anymore. His consciousness swept over the source of the sound. This isolating formation could not block his consciousness at all. He did not want to cause trouble in the auction house, otherwise he would definitely reward him with a few soul thorns. When the price reached 450,000 spirit stones, the monks who had followed him did not move. The female cultivator in charge looked at the private rooms and immediately said with a smile, "Which other Taoist monks want to increase the price?" End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 322. Chapter 322 Heavenly Level Skills. 450,000 spiritual stones at a time. Seeing that no one had raised the price for a long time, the female cultivator in charge had to bang the hammer. 400,000 spiritual stones twice. The female cultivator in charge slowly struck the second hammer. She really hoped that another monk would bid. 50,000 spiritual stones, Mujukin took action. The auctioning female cultivator finally breathed a sigh of relief. How could the heaven-level skills be worth such a price? The more spiritual stones sold, the more she would earn. She wished that the masters who had spiritual stones would smash them in large quantities. She won't mind if you smash her to death. 550,000 spiritual stones. The auction female cultivator had just finished sighing when another person followed from the 5th floor. 600,000 spirit stones. A person on the 4th floor followed. Mujukin frowned. These people were not finished yet. He asked Yuan, "Waner, how many spiritual stones do we have?" Yuan said, "Whatever, you take pictures of our spiritual stones. There is no problem even if she buys all the things in the auction, she is rich." Good. 1,000,000 spirit stones. Mujukin was a little annoyed, so he just photographed a skill. So many people didn't like him and started to argue with him, so he offered a sky-high price. Hey. If you really can't take a photo, don't worry about it. If you want to trick him, there's no way. Sure enough, when Mujukin called out 1,000,000 spiritual stones, the two bidders on the 4th and 5th floors fell silent. At this time, a cold voice sounded, 1.5 million spiritual stones. Hiss, everyone looked at the private room number 1 on the 3rd floor. They took a breath of cold air again. There were 1.5 million spiritual stones. If they were piled up, they would take several rooms. Not to mention owning it, don't even dare to think about it. Mujukin narrowed his eyes, 2 million spiritual stones. Haha, let's see who has so many spiritual stones to smash them with. Anyway, it's not his spiritual stones that are the losers. Wow, who is this person who has so many spiritual stones? If I have so many spiritual stones, why would I be photographing this technique? I just use these spiritual stones to pile up my cultivation base. A monk in the lobby was sour. Said. That's right, some small sects don't have so much savings. Who is this? It's a big deal. The voices of envy, jealousy, and hatred echoed in the lobby. But such an operation made the auction girl very happy. She wished that someone would ask for 10 million spiritual stones. She took the opportunity to bang the hammer, 2 million spiritual stones once. 2 million spiritual stones twice. Seeing that there were no more bids, the female auctioneer banged the hammer again. Mujukin curled his lips and spit out softly, 3 million spiritual stones. Holy crap, who is this awesome guy? A monk in the private room number 3 on the 5th floor had a dark face at this time, and his deep eyes were filled with coldness. He looked at Mujukin's private room and wanted to cut him into pieces. His cold voice sounded again, 4 million spirit stones. Holy shit. The people in the lobby became silent after the shit, and they were all watching them fight with the spirit stone. This kind of battle without gunpowder is the most exciting. Mujukin heard his voice and realized that 4 million spirit stones should not be his limit. But if you want to trick him, let's continue. 5 million spiritual stones. Mujukin glanced at the private room. Will you follow me this time? If he follows again, he won't want it anymore. If he doesn't buy a heaven-level skill with 5 million spiritual stones, it's almost the same. Hee. Mujukin laughed dryly and looked at the dark-faced Yuan. He picked her up with his long arms and held her in his arms, opening his mouth and kissing her. It feels good when a man spends a lot of money. Waner should be angry, it's not for her. Then he will compensate her well. Yuan didn't let her go until she was almost suffocated. Beast, Yuan threw 2 words at him. Mujukin thought about it for a moment, then turned to Yuan with a handsome face and said, I only treat Waner like a beast. Yuan rolled her eyes at him and simply nestled in his arms. She was indeed jealous. Mujukin had never bought something for her so boldly in such a long time. At this time, the man in green in the private room number 3 on the 5th floor gritted his teeth. He picked up a spiritual fruit and squeezed it into a puff of smoke. Who the is shouting while looking at the spirit stone in his pocket. He is a male monk, but he was born with a single water spiritual root. There are very few water-based exercises. He finally collected so many spiritual stones, hoping that one day he could buy a water-based exercise. I came here to try my luck today. I really didn't expect him to run into it, but he encountered a tough problem. Thinking about it, my heart is very stuffed. 5 million stones has reached the limit. If I don't want it, it will be difficult to find the skill in the future. If he continues to shoot, he won't have enough spirit stones, and it will be more difficult in the future. He is not good at cultivating immortals to earn spirit stones. He usually gets them from killing monsters. He gritted his teeth and gave up. Just like the monk in the lobby said, he used the 5 million spiritual stones to pile up his cultivation base. The female cultivator in charge was very happy now. Regardless of whether anyone was raising the price for the 5 million spirit stones, she had already made a huge profit. Seeing that no one was bidding, she knocked the hammer, 5 million spiritual stone once. 5 million spiritual stones for the second time. 5 million spirit stones for the third time, deal done. Congratulations to fellow Taoists in private room number 6 on the third floor. A waiter will deliver the exercises to you later. Next comes the 30-second auction item. In the private room, the waiter quickly brought a jade slip up. Mujukan checked it over. Just looking at the front part of the technique, it was very subtle. He nodded to Yuan, and she gave a small storage bag to the waiter. The waiter checked to confirm that the spirit stones were sufficient, and saluted the two of them. Thank you, senior and junior, for resigning. Yuan looked at the slightly deflated storage bag and thought that it was really not cost-effective to spend so many spiritual stones to shoot a skill. Mujujhan looked at her painful look and said, don't feel bad about the spirit stone, Waner. I will double the spirit stone back later. Earn it back. How? Yuan became more energetic and looked at him with bright eyes. Let's see how your husband makes money later. Just wait and collect the spiritual stones. Yuan curled her lips at him and she waited to see. Mujukan brought her over again, leaned down, and kissed her bright eyes. Then his spiritual consciousness entered the private room number 3 on the 5th floor. He saw that the monk was depressed and immediately sent a message, if you want this water-based skill, you can buy it with spirit stones. I can make a copy for you. 3 million spirit stones. Please wait for me at the door after the auction. The monk in Tsingyi was depressed to death, and he felt very unwilling to miss out on the water-based exercises. Suddenly hearing Mujukan's message, he felt happy and waited silently for the auction to end. 3 million spirit stones to buy a water-based skill is still worth it. After buying it, he still has 2 million spirit stones, which is enough for him to practice. Yuan didn't know how Mujukan could earn back the spirit stones. She was currently looking at the auction below. It was almost the turn of the red dates to appear. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 323. Chapter 323. Obtaining red dates. She could only wait. They have no use for the items being auctioned now and have little interest in them. Mujukan watched with interest. In fact, he was looking for the monk on the third floor who was bidding with them. He guessed that that person also needed this water-based skill, so he could sell it for 3 million spirit stones, so 5 million the spirit stone is back, and he can still earn 1 million. Tisk tisk tisk, the speed of earning spiritual stones is too fast. Mujukan even admires himself for being so smart. Yuan didn't know what he was so happy about. She had to decide for herself. I don't want to look at his stupidity. The next person to appear is the 4th level spiritual fruit red blood jujube. As everyone knows, this is the main medicine for refining the infant pill. The starting price is 10,000 spiritual stones. Each increase in price must not be less than 500 spiritual stones. The bidding begins. The hostess knocked the hammer to quiet the noisy people. The people in the auction hall at the back can only look at the auction items to enjoy themselves. The most important thing is the great masters in the private room. Sure enough, as soon as the hostess finished speaking, a voice from the private room on the 3rd floor sounded, 15,000 spiritual stones. 20,000 spiritual stones, private room on the 4th floor. 30,000 spiritual stones, Yuan bid. Hearing Yuan's voice, everyone knew that there were 2 people in private room number 6 on the 3rd floor. 40,000 spiritual stones, private room number 1 on the 4th floor. 50,000 spiritual stones, private room number 1 on the 5th floor. 60,000 spiritual stones, private room number 6 on the 5th floor. 70,000 spiritual stones, private room number 10 on the 4th floor. 100,000 spirit stones, Yuan shouted. No matter how many spiritual stones these red dates contain, she must get them today. After taking the photo, she will not lose money no matter how much the price is. The cores of the red dates can still be planted on the red soil, and she will be able to harvest more red dates soon. At that time, if she put it up for auction, the spiritual stone would not roll towards her like a snowball. 100,000 spirit stones is not a sky-high price. The monks who returned to the 5th floor from the 3rd floor are all trying to figure out whether the price can be increased. It's not cost-effective to take a picture. Even a top-quality Yingying Dan only costs 1 million spirit stones at most. If the red dates alone cost more than 500,000, people would definitely stop filming them. Moreover, many monks come here for the next 4 final items. There is no need to waste spiritual stones on a red jujube. It is not that the spiritual jujube cannot be found. After a brief pause, the voice from private room number 3 on the 5th floor sounded again, 110,000 spiritual stones. So a new round of bidding began again. 15,000 spiritual stones, private room number 8 on the 5th floor. 16,000 spiritual stones, private room number 9 on the 4th floor. 18,000 spiritual stones, private room number 1 on the 3rd floor. 300,000 spiritual stones, Yuan directly raised it to 300,000 spiritual stones without even thinking about it. It's really troublesome to shoot slowly like this. If it's so high all at once, someone will fall down. Sure enough, after reaching the 300,000 spirit stones, everyone fell into a brief silence again. The female cultivator in charge spoke at the right moment, 300,000 spiritual stones once. Is there any other fellow Taoist who wants to increase the price? 350,000 spiritual stones, private room number 5 on the 5th floor. 400,000 spirit stones, Yuan continued to add more, unwilling to be outdone. Even at this price, there were still people competing with her. It was really annoying. She wanted to increase it to 1 million all at once. 450,000 spirit stones, the private room on the 5th floor of number 5 rang again. Yuan frowned. Did this person raise the price for her on purpose? Every time she raised the price, this person would follow suit. She glanced at Mujukan and decided to give him a soul stab. With so many spirit stones coming out, her heart ached. Her spiritual stone was not blown by the wind and left to be abused by others. Mujukan understood instantly. He decisively entered the private room number 5 on the 5th floor. As expected, there was more than one person in the private room, 2 men and 2 women. One of the female monks said, "Elder brother, try to increase the price for her. It looks like she is bound to get it. She probably wants 1 million. Mujukan frowned. Who is this person so annoying? He decisively sent out 4 soul stabs, and the four of them groaned and fell on the table and fainted. Don't blame him, who let them bully his wife. After that, Mujukin immediately withdrew his consciousness. Then he used the same color as Yuan. Yuan then shouted, 450-500 spiritual stones. She doesn't want to add even one more spiritual stone. The host female cultivator saw that it was almost done. No one made any more bids, but she still shouted in an official manner, is there any other Taoist fellow who wants to increase the price? 450,500 once. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? There was not even a sound of discussion in the lobby. The hostess had to hit the hammer again, 450,502 times. Fellow Taoist who wants to take action, hurry up, if not, Taoist in private room number 6 on the 3rd floor can take the shot. 450,503 times, deal done. The female cultivator in charge gave the last hammer blow. The following is the last auction item on our auction book. In the private room, Yuan quickly made a deal with the waiter. Her goal had been achieved, and she asked Mujukin, now that we have the things, should we go or take a look? Let's take a look again. Aren't there 4 final pieces at the back? Let's see what they are. Yuan nodded. The last auction item on the auction book was a life-extending pill, which was quickly sold to private room number 7 on the 4th floor. The voice sounded like that of a very old man. Ahem, everyone, be quiet, this is the finale of our business, and the first one to appear will keep it secret. As soon as the presiding female cultivator finished speaking, a jade box came out from the teleportation array in front of him. The presiding female cultivator took down the jade box. It was a rectangular box, which probably contained a sword-shaped magic weapon. The presiding female cultivator opened the box and carefully he took out a fiery red sword. She said, this is an ancient fire-based flying sword. This sword is called Hongyun. It was brought out by a monk from the secret realm. This sword is powerful and has its own fire-based spells. It is very suitable for monks with fire roots. The starting price is 100,000 spirit stones, and each increase must not be less than 1,000 spirit stones. Bidding begins now. The ancient castle fire flying sword, Mujukin, this sword is very suitable for you, do you want to take a photo? Mujukin shook his head. He had a fire-based flying sword passed down from his ancestors, so there was no need for the ancient treasure flying sword. Yuan shook her head. It was a pity that it was not suitable for her to use, otherwise she would have photographed it. The ancient castle is actually at the level of spiritual treasures. The so-called ancient treasures are the spiritual treasures left over from ancient times. The power of the spiritual treasures at that time was much more powerful than the current spiritual treasures. To distinguish them, they are called ancient treasures. She looked at the fierce competition below. In a short time, the amount of spirit stones had reached 1 million kilograms. In fact, there are magic treasures and spiritual treasures in her space, but there are no ancient treasures, but the little snake must have some in stock, so she might as well scrape some out when she goes back. After the auction, I still have to go back first to see the little snake and then come back. They know the way and are not afraid of the monsters in Juya Forest, so they can come and go as they please. I just happened to take some pictures today, so I guess I was targeted by someone, so I just got rid of them. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 324. Chapter 324 Yuan's Plan. In the end, the ancient flying sword was sold for 10 million spirit stones after fierce competition. Yuan slapped her tongue. The hostess was so excited that she could not suppress her joy even on stage. At this time, the auction of the second final product, the magic pill, has begun. Mujukin, do we want to take pictures of the magic pill? Mujukin shook his head, don't worry, The nascent soul has not been completed yet, it's still early to transform into a spirit. He knew that Warner wanted to take a picture for him. If they really took the picture today, it would be difficult to establish a foothold here in the future. The magic pill is so rare that countless pairs of eyes are staring at it. Okay, Yuan agreed. The final transaction price was 50 million spiritual stones. Yuan was tongue-tied again. There are so many wealthy people here. Her spirit stones were collected in countless storage bags. One person here has so many spirit stones. The third final auction item was a Lingbao flying boat, which was sold for 20 million lingxi. The fourth auction item was an ancient treasure elixir furnace, with a final transaction price of 25 million spiritual stones. Yuan also made several bids, thinking that those who photographed them might not be able to use them, so she finally gave up. She owns the Medicine King cauldron, but this ancient treasure alchemy furnace is useless in front of it. Let's go, Warner. As soon as the auction ended, Mujukan led her out of the private room and came to the special teleportation array. When the two of them appeared at the door of the auction house, Mujukan said, Warner, why don't you go back first? He is going to earn spiritual stones later. He wants to give Warner a surprise. Monks are not allowed to fight, kill, or steal goods in the city. He is not worried about being stared at. Yuan said, what's wrong with you? This guy rarely does anything behind her back. Well, be good, go back to the inn first, and wait until your husband comes back to earn spiritual stones for you. Mujukan touched her head. In his consciousness, the monk who wanted water-based exercises was already waiting for him. Okay then, Yuan nodded. It turned out that this guy was really going to earn spiritual stones. She thought he was joking before. She walked to the inn alone in a happy mood, thinking about her man earning spiritual stones to give her flowers. It felt really good. While walking, she suddenly thought that she could go check out the shops now, so she walked towards Fangxi. It was better for the shops to be opened in Fangxi. When Yuan came to the market, she took a quick look. The layout of the market was similar everywhere. Instead of visiting the street stalls, she looked at the shops to see if there were any shops that were about to be sold out. Unfortunately, she walked around and didn't see the store to be transferred, so she had to give up and return to the inn. As soon as Yuan stepped in, Mujukan came back. He handed her a storage bag and said, Warner, look how many spirit stones are in it. Yuan took the storage bag and took a look at it with her consciousness. Holy shit, 10 million spiritual stones. That's the exercise you used in exchange for it? Mujukan nodded, yes. Is your husband in trouble? Today is also a lucky day. Do you remember the person who bid with me? He spent 3 million to buy it, and then I saw another bidder man. That person is from a cultivator family. Their family lacks this water skill, so he also spent 3 million to buy it. Then he found two people who were bidding with us in the auction house, but those two people didn't. There are only 2 million spiritual stones, so we won 10 million spiritual stones in the end, and we made a net profit of several million spiritual stones. After saying that, he still hugged her and rubbed her body. He finally earned a large amount of spiritual stones. Yuan watched him talking excitedly, and she listened quietly. This was the first time he had earned so many spiritual stones. Just let him be happy. The two of them even celebrated in the end. Mujukan, why don't we go back first and bring the little snake over? Yes, if you meet your grandparents, they can bring them over. Mujukan nodded. The two reached an agreement and left the city that day, flying towards the entrance of the passage they came out from, and then returned the same way, still going out from the tree hole. After making a mark, the two of them quickly ran out of the forest. When they encountered a powerful monster, they would work together to kill it alone. If they couldn't do it, they would wait in the space and wait until the monster left before coming out. After a month like this, the two of them left the Juya forest and flew into the valley where they originally lived. There was no one in the valley. The two of them flew towards the place where the little snake was retreating. At this time, the little snake was still trying to retreat, no different from when they left. The little snake comes out, Yuan roared. It was in seclusion like a little snake hatching. It would be damned if it could recover. Hey, master, the little snake flew out and went straight into her arms. Mujukan saw this and took it out. The little snake rolled her eyes at him. Master, why are you here? I'm here to pick you up and take you to a place. Where? The world of cultivating immortals. Is there still a world of immortality here? Of course, there is not only a world of cultivation here but also a Juya forest, which is full of high-level monsters. Are you worried that you will not be able to recover your cultivation? Really? The little snake blinked its triangular eyes, and then narrowed its eyes with a smile. Yuan immediately took out a 5th-level demon elixir and placed it in front of the little snake. Let's see, how does it go? Master, this is really a 5th-level demon elixir, my god. Thank you, Master. The little snake couldn't wait to swallow it in one gulp. Yuan saw it swallowed, and waved her hand to put it into the space. Are we going to the world of immortality now, or are we here with Grandpa and the others? Mujukan asked. Let's go back to the valley first. Cultivation here and there is the same. Let's wait a few years. Yuan thought for a while and said that it would take too much time to find him, so it would be better to practice while waiting. Now that I have so many spiritual stones in my hand, I don't have to worry about not practicing enough. This time, that time. She thought about bringing everyone there. The monks would still have to be with the monks. Although their cultivation would not be affected here, they would not gain any knowledge or experience. Monks also need to cultivate their mental state during cultivation, and knowledge and experience can broaden their mental state. With a relaxed mind, it will not be so easy to get carried away when going through the thunder tribulation and the inner demon tribulation. Yuan has benefited a lot from this auction trip alone, so there are certain problems with her previous decision. Her original idea was to farm here, have children and grow old. But as her cultivation level improved, she knew that one day she would ascend to the spirit world. In a brand new world like the spiritual world, and a world at a higher level, it is difficult to survive without any skills, and you are in danger of falling every minute. There is no one who does not cherish life as long as he lives. So monks still have to return to the world of immortality. Yuan thought of this, and she suddenly felt that the shackles on her body were silently broken, and her whole body relaxed, as if she had lost a big mountain. And at this moment, my brain became clear, my whole body was clear, and I felt indescribably comfortable. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 325. Chapter 325. Yuan's Epiphany. Mujukan saw her frozen in place, not knowing what happened to her. He stood there at a loss. Suddenly, he thought of the epiphany mentioned in the jade slip, and he said in surprise, Waner is having an epiphany. Mujukan couldn't laugh or cry. Waner could actually have an epiphany in a place like this. She was really a monster. He immediately sat cross-legged to protect her. He must not be disturbed during the enlightenment period, and the longer the enlightenment time, the better. Sure enough, not long after, a large amount of spiritual energy poured into Yuan's body. The aura on her body was gradually getting stronger, but she didn't know it. However, this situation did not last long. After about 100 breaths, the spiritual energy receded and Yuan also woke up. What happened to me just now? Why did my cultivation level suddenly increase? The first time Yuan opened her eyes, she felt a little top-heavy. Looking inside, her cultivation level had increased. Waner, what you were in just now was an epiphany. You should sit down and consolidate your cultivation. Otherwise, if your cultivation falls, you will lose more than you gain. You will have an epiphany in vain, Mujughan said quickly. Oh, so that's it. No wonder she said her cultivation was so vain. She didn't have time to think too much. She sat down and started running the exercises to consolidate her cultivation. One day later, Yuan opened her eyes and exhaled heavily. At the peak of the middle stage of the golden core, your cultivation has climbed so fast. How long has it been since you were promoted to the golden core? This epiphany not only made my mind clear, but also improved my cultivation. It would be great to have more such epiphanies. Let's go back. Mujughan stood up and pulled Yuan. Yuan nodded. She was still in the joy of enlightenment. They quickly returned to the valley and went to Xiaoqingshan to visit Mu Yunshan's family and asked them if they wanted to go to the world of immortality. He said that his family would not go and that it would be a good life here where men farmed and women weaved. The two of them couldn't do it. Everyone has his own way of living and couldn't be forced, so the two of them returned to the valley. 5 years have passed since then. On this day, Yuan gained space from cultivation. Suddenly, a person fell down in the valley. When Yuan saw it with her consciousness, it turned out to be Yu Heiran. She rushed over and helped him up to sit up. It turned out that he was seriously injured, so she immediately stuffed a healing elixir into his mouth. 2 hours later, Yu Heiran opened his eyes. "Brother, what's the matter with your injury?" Yu Heiran did not answer her but said eagerly, "Xiao Sier, please go and save the second and third children." "Where are they?" Yuan was shocked. "What happened to the second and third brothers?" Yu Heiran's breath was still a little unstable, and he gasped, "In the Juya forest." Yuan's heart skipped a beat. "What are you doing in the Juya forest?" "The monsters inside are powerful and forbidden to fly." Yu Heiran said, "The second and third sons all wanted to go in and kill the monster, but they failed to kill the monster and were chased by it. I ran out to find you at the risk of my life." Yuan sighed, immediately took Yu Heiran into the space, and then told Mujughan the whole story. Mujughan said, "Then let's rescue people quickly, otherwise things will change if we wait too long." "Yeah," Yuan nodded, and the two of them drew their flying swords and flew towards the Juya forest. When they arrived outside Juya forest, Yuan moved Yu Heiran out and asked him to lead the way. There were two people, Mujughan and Yuan, and Yu Heiran took them both and ran straight to their destination. Half a day later, they came to a cliff. Xiao Sier and the others are below. Yu looked down with her consciousness, but she couldn't even see the bottom. She had a bad feeling in her heart, and the air was forbidden here. If you fell from here, she didn't dare to think whether the second brother and the third brother would survive. It's impossible to jump down so deep. It seems the only way is to use the space. She said, "You two enter the space, and I will use the space to go down. If we go down like this, we will fall to death." The situation was urgent, so the two of them didn't argue too much and nodded. We all know that the longer it takes, the worse it will be for the two people below. After the two of them entered the space, Yuan jumped down the cliff suddenly. When she just jumped down, a suction force from below sucked her down and she fell down so fast that she felt bad. She was wondering if there was a monster sucking down there. If it was a monster, the chances of the two of them surviving were slim. Yuan was thinking about how to deal with an unexpected situation while thinking about it. At the same time, she also looked down with her consciousness. "I don't know how high this cliff is, I don't know how long I have been falling, and I still can't see the bottom." Yuan had no choice but to let her fall down like this. Water pool. Finally, Yuan's consciousness saw that there was a water pool under the hanging bottom. She breathed a sigh of relief. If it was a pool, the two of them would have a little chance of survival. Yuan couldn't control the speed of her fall, but she paid attention. The moment she was about to fall into the pool, she entered the space. When he came out again, Mujughan followed him. Mujukan, let's go to the bottom of the water first. If she fell from such a high place, she must be at the bottom of the water. Just now, her consciousness checked that there was no one at the edge of the pool. There are no traces of crawling. The two of them put defensive covers on their bodies and dove into the water. I don't know how deep this pool is. When they went down 5 feet, the pressure on the two people began to increase suddenly. The two of them continued to flee downwards. When they were almost 10 feet away, before they could reach the bottom, the defensive shields on the two of them had been broken. Yuan had no choice but to let Mujukan enter the space, and she used the space to escape downwards. Fortunately, her body was strong enough and she was not crushed by the water pressure. The further down you go, the lower the visibility of your spiritual consciousness becomes, and Yuan's bad feeling becomes stronger and stronger. Huh? There's a hole there. At this moment, when Yu's bowl and chopsticks were about to reach the bottom of the water, a half-foot square hole appeared in her consciousness. Yuan felt happy. If the second and third brothers were inside, there might be a chance of survival. Yangwan used all his strength to escape and escaped into the cave. That's weird. Why is there no water in this cave? When Yuan entered the cave, there was no water in the cave. The water only stopped at the entrance of the cave, as if there was a layer of things separating it from the outside. Here you can also see the water moving outside. Now is not the time to study this. She moved Mujukan out. Waner, is there such a magical place? Mujukan was also surprised. Well, let's go in and take a look first. Good. The two people walked inside. The hole was very deep and became wider as they walked. Their spiritual consciousness was released, and sure enough there was breath deep in the cave. The two men ran over quickly. Inside is a larger hole. In the hole, a giant beast squats in front of a formation. In the formation are Yu Hao and Yu Haoshan. But the condition of the two men was obviously not good. They were both lying on their backs on the ground, with only a weak breath rising and falling. Mujukan recognized that formation. It was the 4th level trapping formation he gave them. At that time, he could only refine simple 4th level formations. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 326. Chapter 326 found. But now the formation is already shaky and may break at any time. The giant beast turned its head and saw two strangers coming in. It tilted its head and looked at them curiously, but had no intention of attacking them. Whose contracted spiritual pet is this? This is how the two of them feel. Can you understand what we are saying? Yuan tried to ask the giant beast that looked like a dog and a flying wolf. The beast nodded to them. Yuan was very happy. She scooped out a basin of monkey wine from the space and placed it in front of them. She said to the giant beast, "Try this very fragrant wine. I'll give it to you to drink." The giant beast sniffed, and sure enough, a smile appeared on the dog's face. It looked like it should be very happy. Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. It would be best not to fight. They could not feel any malice from the giant beast, and the beast looked quite cute. She is naturally fond of dogs. Before Yuan could say anything, the giant beast grabbed the basin and ran away. Su gently lit a stick of wax on the giant beast, hoping it wouldn't die of drunkenness. They quickly ran to the formation. Mujujhan solved the formation. At the same time, Yuan led the three of them into the space. In the space, two people each check one. Yuan inspected Yu Hao with her consciousness, and saw that all their bones were shattered, and there was not a single intact bone in their bodies. Even their skulls were broken, and their whole bodies were like pieces of paper. The internal organs were also rotten and shapeless. In short, there is no human shape at all. If it weren't for the robes covering their bodies and the fact that they had gone through physical training, they would have been reduced to pieces of flesh. She carefully checked her Danchen and Zhenhun. Under such circumstances, it would be damned if they were intact. Sure enough, after this inspection, the Danchen was broken and the soul was shattered. Yuan quickly gave him a top-grade healing elixir and used her spiritual power to help him dissolve the potion. After checking over there, Mujukin couldn't help but take a breath. The injury was so serious that he might not be able to recover for 10 or 8 years. Especially the Danchen and spiritual consciousness cannot recover so quickly even if there are pills. These two uncles were so seriously injured that Mujukin wiped away his tears for them. Fortunately, he has his wife and their lives are good, otherwise, they would have waited for ashes to ashes to ashes to ashes. Fortunately, he could still save their lives, so he immediately stuffed a pill into Yu Haoshan to relieve him of the medicine's power. An hour later, the two of them fed them a healing elixir at the same time. Slowly, the bones and internal organs of the two of them are recovering, and now they look a bit human. After being fed another top-quality elixir, the two brothers' bodies were completely intact. They were still not as strong as before, but they were about 40% or 50% better. The next thing is the Danchen and the soul. The soul is easy to talk about. With the soul liquid, their souls can be healed in less than 10.5 days. This Danchen is a troublesome thing. This Danchen is broken. If it is not repaired, they will no longer be able to practice and will stay here for life. Mujukin, I will give you the soul liquid, you can help them repair their souls, and I will refine the elixir to repair their Danchen. Mujukin nodded. Yuan entered the red earth with her consciousness, filled 2 large bottles of divine soul liquid and gave them to Mujukin, telling him how to use them. At this time, Mujukin knew how Wanner had rescued him when he had fallen into the inner demon. When he rescues his 2 uncles, he will definitely love his wife well. He followed the method and first sprinkled the soul liquid on each person's soul. Yuan entered the alchemy room and sat down cross-legged, searching for Huang Chuying's elixir in her mind. She remembered that there was an elixir for repairing the Danchen. After burning a stick of incense, I found a 4th-level elixir pill. She looked at the elixirs in the elixir recipe, memorized them carefully, and then searched the medicinal field with her consciousness. Fortunately, all the elixirs were complete. With a flash of consciousness, she had arrived at the elixir field. With a flash of consciousness, she already had 10 more elixirs of pills in her hand. Then go back to alchemy, process the elixir, and then carefully go through the refining process of refining the elixir in your mind. The refining process was a bit complicated. She thought about it several times before starting to refine the elixir. Now she is at the peak of the middle stage of the golden elixir, and her spiritual power is much stronger than that of the early stage of the golden elixir. Now it is not so strenuous to refine the 4th-level elixir. The first time I refined these 4th-level elixir pills, a lot of them were scrapped. In the last 2 batches, I still made 5 pills. At this time, Su Qingqing's consciousness relaxed. She had no time to regulate her spiritual power, so she sent out the elixir and gave it to Mujukin. After that, she returned to the elixir making process and sat down to meditate to restore her spiritual power. With Yu Heiran helping outside, Yuan was not so anxious. She would not come out until her spiritual power returned to its peak. How are the 2nd and 3rd brothers doing now? Don't worry Wanner, they are fine now. They can just rest for a month or so. Mujukin held her in his arms and patted her back to comfort her. Well, eldest brother Mujukin, you two should go and have a rest first. Leave this to me. The faces of both of them were full of exhaustion. The 2 of them nodded towards her, indeed both of them were exhausted. The main reason is that when helping them dissolve the pills, their consciousness and spiritual power must not relax for a moment. Especially Yu Heiran, his injury was not fully healed yet, and now he is even more exhausted. After they left, Yuan took Yu Hao and Yu Haoshan to their bed. Before, they were as untouchable as the piece of paper, so how could they dare to move? Now that their bodies have recovered half of their strength, moving around is not a problem. She checked their souls, which were being repaired. She was fine now. Thinking about the giant beast outside, she probably drank a large basin of monkey wine and was drunk enough to be unconscious, right? She came out of the space, and as soon as she came out, she heard the sound of snoring. She walked following the sound, and sure enough, the giant beast was lying on the ground snoring, with the basin still beside its mouth. Yuan knelt down and looked carefully at this monster that looked like a dog and a wolf. It had the head of a dog and the body of a wolf. It was a 5th-level monster with considerable strength. Now he was purring, looking silly, and looked very cute. She had the urge to accept it as a pet for a moment. She likes such cute pets the most. Think about it, there is a small snake, so forget it. While it was drunk now, Yuan took a look at the cave. This huge cave was obviously man-made. The walls of the cave were smooth, and the ground was not uneven. Just because it had been too long, there were some gravels scattered on the ground. She scanned the cave carefully with her consciousness and found a secret door. She stepped over and pushed it with her hand. The stone door did not move at all. She put her spiritual power into her palms and slapped it away hard. With a loud bang, the stone door shattered, splashing dust all over the ground, and Yuan immediately dodged away. Then he waved at the dust a few times, and the dust dispersed, revealing a stone room inside. She checked with her consciousness and found a skeleton sitting inside. It must be the owner of the cave. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 327. Chapter 327 comes out. She walked in and waved her hand over the skeleton, revealing a dense skeleton. At the same time, a storage bag dropped, and there was a storage ring on the skeleton's finger. Yuan used the magic of controlling objects to take out the storage ring and the storage bag, and then threw them back into space. Except for this skeleton, the rest of the stone room was empty. Yuan entered the space without stopping any longer. She was interested in the contents of the storage ring. Generally, monks who could afford a storage ring were at least golden elixir or above. "Waner, are you out?" Mujukin saw her as soon as she came in. "Yeah, I went to see that monster." "Come on, I'll take you to see something." She pulled Mujukin into the wooden house. "Huh, this is not a storage bag, this is a spirit animal bag." Yuan took the storage bag-like thing and looked at it several times. It was indeed not a storage bag. Mujukin took it and looked at it. He was an array master, so he could still tell the difference between a storage bag and a spirit beast bag. The spiritual energy in the spirit beast bag is sufficient for monsters to survive in it. Could it be, Waner, this is the spirit beast bag? The giant beast outside lives in it. His master should have released it before his death. If it is not released, when the spiritual energy inside is gone, it will only die inside. Yuan nodded. It was not surprising that there was a spirit animal bag. It was just the first time she saw it, so she was a little curious. Let's see what's in that storage ring. It's better to be interested in the treasure. Good. She poured the contents of the storage ring onto the ground. She liked this simple and crude action and was too lazy to take it out one by one. It took a lot of effort. There are quite a lot of things inside, but they have seen Huang Qiuying's things. Although these things don't surprise them much, they still like the feeling of picking up treasures. The two of them were cleaning and looking around, and they could tell that this man was a monk who transformed himself into a god. He probably fell inadvertently and could not withstand the pressure of the pool, which damaged his consciousness and dantian. Without a specific elixir, he could only wait to die. There are very few elixirs and spiritual objects in the world that can cure the spiritual consciousness. Wanner, here is an identity token. Mujukin picked up a jade pendant and looked at it. One side was Qingyang sect and the other side was Bianzi. He handed the jade pendant to Yuan, and she also looked at it. This jade plate was not much different from the identity jade plate in Haoyu sect before. It also had the name of the sect on one side and his own name on the other. Bianzi should be his Taoist name. Bar. Generally, after a monk reaches the golden elixir level, he or she will give himself a Taoist title. For example, a golden elixir monk is called a certain Taoist monk, a nascent soul monk is called a certain Taoist monk, and a nascent soul monk is called a certain Taoist king. If Yuan and the others were still in Haoyu sect, they would also have their own Taoist names. Thinking of Haoyu sect, she sighed heavily. She will never join the sect in this life, and it is good to be a casual cultivator. Don't be sad, Wanner. We can go back and have a look when we have the opportunity in the future. Mujukin held her in his arms distressedly and kissed her head to comfort her. Wanner must have thought of Yokui, who was her first master. Mujukin also felt mixed emotions when thinking about his master, and he also sighed. It seems that they have never had a master relationship in their lives. Well, let's clean up quickly. After we're done, we'll see how to get out. Grandpa and the others are still outside. Mujukin nodded. Although the things were of high quality, they still rarely used them. After putting away the things, the two of them walked out of the wooden house. Go to the rooms of Yu Hao and Yu Haoshan and see that Yu Heiran is taking care of them. Brother, take care of your second and third brothers here. Mujukin and I will go out and see where we can get out. Yu Heiran nodded to them. The two of them stepped out of the space. In the cave, the giant beast was still sleeping soundly. Yuan walked over and looked at it again. Wanner, do you like it? If you like it, just make a contract with it. It happened to be asleep, Mujukin said when he saw that she liked it very much. Yuan shook her head. She already had a little snake and didn't want to keep any more spiritual pets. However, it was okay to give this giant beast to Xiaolu. She should also like this cute monster. She waved her hand, and the giant beast on the ground entered the space. Mujukin thought he didn't want it. Give it to Xiaolu, she should like it. This giant beast can also protect Xiaolu, Yuan explained. I happen to have a spirit animal bag and there is room to put it. Mujukin thought of her sister-in-law. She was really weak, so it would be nice to have this giant beast protecting her. But what he was thinking was that if they went out to Juya Forest, they might as well catch a few and give each of them a spiritual beast. He immediately told Yuan this idea. Hey, this method is feasible. Why didn't I think of it before? There happens to be a way to contract a monster. Even if the monster is stronger than the contractor, it won't suffer backlash. Yuan's eyes lit up. I thought about killing it, but not about using it. Okay, let's go out first and then talk. Well, you can only go up from the pool, but you still have to go back to the space, Yuan said. She scanned the cave with her consciousness. There was no other way out. If there was, the monk would not have died here. Thinking of the corpse, the two went back and dug a hole for it to be buried, and its jade identification tag also went with it. Yuan took Mujukin and walked towards the entrance of the cave. She raised her legs and stepped towards the barrier. She walked out so easily. When she came out, a huge pressure pressed on her. Yuan had to enter the space again for a while, then come out, and tried her best to escape upwards. When she couldn't bear it anymore, she entered the space. In this way, it took a day to escape to the water. She tried her best to climb to the shore, and sat on the shore, breathing heavily. She was looking at the pool, wondering what mystery there was under the pool. How could an ordinary water pool have such great pressure, but she knew that this pool was extraordinary and did not have the strength to find out now. She secretly remembered this place and came back if she had the opportunity in the future. I believe that when her body training reaches the 5th level, the underwater pressure will not have much effect on her body when she comes back again. After sitting for a while, Yuan flashed into the space to restore her cultivation to its peak state before coming out with Mujukan. Besides the pool at the bottom of the cliff, there was a dense forest outside. When they explored it with their spiritual senses, they found that there was the aura of a 5th level monster inside. Yuan is not afraid of 5th level monsters now. She has the most powerful hunting artifact in her hand, monkey wine. No one can resist the temptation of monkey wine's pure aroma. But no matter how much she has, she will not waste it. If she wants to use it, it will be for the 5th level monsters she wants to take as spiritual pets. That way it won't hurt the monster, but soul stabbing will still cause some damage to the monster's sea of consciousness. Wanner, let's go see what kind of 5th level monster this is. Okay, it's just what I want. If you like it, we'll accept it. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 328. Chapter 328 Drunken Monster. The two of them walked happily looking for the aura. The low-level monsters in the forest did not dare to approach them at all. Those who approached them were killed by their soul thorns. The two came to a cave. The breath came from the cave. The two people immediately looked into the cave with their consciousness. Mujuk and Jun frowned and said regretfully, Wanner is a 5th level demon crocodile. It was so ugly that he didn't say the last sentence. However, this kind of monster has fierce attack power and is quite strong. But raising such an ugly monster is really eye-catching. It's okay, this Juya forest is very big, there is always something suitable. Yuan also had some regrets. She thought about how there could be a good monster in this huge forest, but Nima turned out to be such an ugly guy. But when you think about the water pool, it's not surprising that there is such a demon crocodile. Mujukan, it should be okay to refine a magic weapon from the skin of this monster crocodile, right? All spirit treasures are fine, but I'm not strong enough right now, but I can put them aside for now and practice them again when I reach the stage of becoming a god, Mujukan nodded and said. Since participating in that auction, he has learned that the things on the 3rd level monsters can be used to refine magic weapons, the 4th level monsters can be used to refine spiritual treasures, and the 5th level monsters can be used to refine Taoist weapons. These 5th level ones are now used to refine magic weapons, which is really a waste of natural resources, so it is better to save them for refinement when the cultivation level is high. The two of them deliberately leaked their breath, and sure enough, not long after, rustling sounds came from inside, and soon a huge demon crocodile lay at the entrance of the cave and looked at them intently. Ouch! The demon crocodile suddenly opened its mouth wide and roared, and rushed towards the two of them. The two of them made a mistake in their steps, and at the same time they fired soul thorns, which shot directly into the demon crocodile's mouth. The demon crocodile stopped suddenly, shook his head continuously, and made a whining sound from his mouth. Yuan and the two took the opportunity to send out another set of soul thorns. The demon crocodile struggled for a few times and then died completely. Yuan went up and put it into the space, and then the two of them walked out of the forest to a place with water. After the two of them cleaned the demon crocodile, they grilled the demon crocodile's meat on the spot. Mujukan, the meat of this monster crocodile is quite delicious. Unlike the crocodile meat here, which is very tough, this one is very tender and fragrant. Is there such a monster crocodile in your world? Well, it's the same, except that we have all kinds of animals called crocodiles, but the meat is not delicious. You have eaten. Well, there are artificially bred ones, and the wild ones are protected animals and cannot be hunted. Oh? Is there such a rule? Mujukan was surprised. After eating, Yuan stood up and clapped her hands. Let's go and see where it is outside. We can't even figure out the direction here. Okay, Mujukan put away all the utensils. Then the two of them walked hand in hand towards the outside of the forest. Wait a minute, Yuan immediately grabbed Mujukan and stared at the outside of the forest warily. Mujukan, we are in trouble now. What's wrong? Mujukan realized that Juaner's consciousness was much stronger than his, and he didn't notice any danger. We have arrived at the monster beast's den. In front of us is a huge valley, surrounded by mountains on three sides. In front of us is an exit, with hundreds of fifth-level monster beasts inside. We can either go back and find a way out again, or we can kill those monster beasts. Kill the beast and find a way out again, but no matter where the way out is, you must climb up from the bottom of the mountain. That's it. Mujukan's face showed no fear but surprise. There are more than 100 fifth-level monsters. But when I thought that it was more than 100, not just one, my surprise suddenly turned into horror. The two of them looked at each other and swallowed their saliva. Now there was really no way out, so they had no choice but to fight hard. However, seeing all the fifth-level monsters here reminded Yuan of something. From the very beginning, she felt that the monsters in the Nine Nether Forest were raised by others. Seeing so many fifth-level monsters and how they seemed to live in peace made her even more sure of that idea in her heart. This is equivalent to a breeding farm. So no matter what the reason is, today there are more than 100 fifth-level monsters. No matter what, they have to kill them. At least a bucket of monkey wine will be sacrificed. I can't bear to let the child catch the wolf, and now I have reached a dead end. There are more than 100 fifth-level monsters here, and some of them have relatively noble bloodlines, so they can be selected as their spiritual pets. This is really a killing two birds with one stone. She told Mujukan her thoughts. I'll take out a bucket of monkey wine from the space. Let's do this. So many monsters can only be outmaneuvered. Mujukan nodded. But before putting the monkey wine, Yuan picked out a large frame of fifth-level spiritual fruits from the space, and they had to be scattered first. The two of them looked at the spirit fruit with pain, giving the monsters an advantage. The fifth-level monsters that were wandering leisurely in the valley suddenly saw so many spiritual fruits flying in the distance. After they looked around and found that there was no danger, they all scrambled to grab them. At this time, Yuan poured out 2 pots of monkey wine from the space with her consciousness. There were only 2 of them and they could only open 2 pots separately first. In this way, those who grabbed the spiritual fruit would grab the spiritual fruit, and those who didn't grab the monkey wine would drink the monkey wine. Children's wine. By defeating them one by one in this way, they can capture these monsters without using force. At the same time, the two of them put away the 2 pots of monkey wine at an extremely fast speed, and then ran away again. By this time, the 5th-level monsters had discovered them, but when they smelled the aroma of the monkey wine, no one could move away to chase them, so they all rushed to grab a drink. At this time, Yuan moved to the other side and put down another pot, and Mujukan also put down another pot at the same time. When the monsters tasted the sweetness, they all rushed to drink it frantically, but they did not expect that danger had already befallen them. The two of them quickly placed the monkey wine until there were more than 20 pots of monkey wine and the large bucket of monkey wine was already empty. At this time, the monsters drank the monkey wine, so they didn't care what they were doing. They just pretended that the two of them had brought food to them, so they drank it without worry. Who is so stupid as to give them so many precious spiritual things to eat? The answer is the person who raises them. However, some monsters were very wary and did not grab it, but watched from a distance. Yuan and the others had already retreated far away, and they could only look at them with their spiritual consciousness. At this time, the monster in front of him who drank the monkey wine had already started to stagger in the valley. After a while, some of the monsters lay down and fell asleep. Yuan and the others did not move, and the monsters were even more convinced that this was to bring food to them. The remaining wary monsters just couldn't resist the temptation of the aroma of wine. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 329. Chapter 329 Climb to the top of the mountain. They also joined the team and quickly drank the monkey wine in the basin. The monkey wine was all gone in a few seconds. At this time, Yuan saw that horse wine was not enough, so she felt so painful that she ran to put in a few more basins. This time she asked Mujukan not to go, so that she could move alone. Mujukan nodded in agreement and asked her to be careful. When the monsters didn't pay attention to her, Yuan quickly put on the invisibility cloak, ran into the middle of the monsters, and took the drunk monsters into the space. At the same time, several pots of monkey wine were released. Mujukan watched her from a distance as she shuttled among the monster beasts like a fish in water, and he was still extremely worried. Yuan took advantage of the space and kept retracting and retracting it. Not even a stick of incense was left, and there were not many monsters left standing in the valley. The monkeys they grabbed had too little wine, so they were not drunk yet. They simply opened their mouths and shouted, wanting to drink. Yuan twitched her lips. She didn't drink enough and she went crazy with alcohol. It was so irritating to the eyes. They are also very drinkable. A large bucket has been emptied, and there are still about 20 of them who are not drunk. Yuan had to collect the pots on the ground and put a few more pots out. Think about it and give it up if you have too much. It doesn't matter if you give more. They really went crazy and attacked in groups. Their own lives were much more important than the monkey wine. At worst, I'll have to make another trip to the valley where the monster monkeys live. After half a stick of incense, almost all the monsters in the valley fell down. Mujukan ran to the valley and collected the monsters with Yuan. After everything was cleaned up, the two of them sat on the ground and felt their hearts still beating. It was so exciting, wasn't it? The two looked at each other and smiled. Yuan leaned against Mujukan, and he hugged her. The two of them said nothing. Silence was better than sound at this time. They sat in silence for a long time. Mujukan, let's go into the space and take a look. Mujukan nodded. In the space, 5-level monsters were piled on top of each other in front of the wooden house. They were all smelling of alcohol, and they were all snoring and sleeping soundly. Xiao Ser, what is this? Yu Heiran dared to run over when he saw them coming in, and asked her in horror. Hey, it was done outside, big brother, let's do it together, shall we? Yuan stepped forward and took Yu Heiran's arm, leaning her head on his shoulder to act coquettishly. Yu Heiran nodded her head fondly, you two dare to do such a dangerous thing. I really don't know what to say about you. There are 2 more people lying in the room, both of them are disturbing guys. Brother, let's take a look, pick one you like and sign a contract with him. Yuan pulled him in and winked at Mujukan. Mujukan understood instantly and hurriedly stepped forward to help his uncle choose a spiritual pet. There are all kinds of species on the ground, including flying tigers, soaring leopards, armored oxen, blue-scaled pythons, white foxes, blue foxes, diamond apes, silver moon wolves. Yu Heiran chose a flying wing tiger to make a contract with. This kind of monster beast can come by land and air. He likes it better. Moreover, this flying wing tiger has great combat power. In this way, the flying wing tiger became the spiritual pet of human monks in a daze. Then there was Mujukan. He didn't want any spiritual pet at all, but he couldn't resist Yuan and chose the Silver Moon Wolf King. After the 2 men finished picking, the 3 of them first picked out all the armored oxen and stabbed them to death with their souls. There is no need for a contract with this kind of monster, and their fighting power is too bad. Their skin is quite thick and can be used to refine weapons. The meat is of course very delicious, so they will naturally save it for later. Then there are the diamond ape and the blue scale python. These two are also fighting against the fifth scum, so there is no need to keep them. In fact, they are reluctant to kill these, but there are too many of them. Keeping them in space without a contract is a big hidden danger. In the end, there were only 10 flying winged tigers and 1 five-tailed white fox left, as well as 2 golden eagles, 5 silver moon wolves, 4 golden king lions, and 5 fire loon. This was enough for each of them to share one, and the remaining 3 were slaughtered, and then skinned, boned, and fleshed. Even the blood of the monsters and beasts is poured out, which is a good material for drawing talismans. It took the 3 of them a month to finish the matter in the space. This month, Yu Hao and Yu Haoshan finally woke up, but they were still very weak, so they went into seclusion to heal their injuries. After Yuan properly dealt with the other monsters, the 3 of them came out. Yuan looked back at Yu Haoran. "Brother, are you sure you want to crawl with us?" Yu Haoran nodded. What he most urgently needs now is to improve his strength and form pills as soon as possible. He just missed a chance. If he could climb up from the bottom of this cliff with bare hands, he would probably be able to form elixirs after he got out. "Well, brother, be careful. Although this mountain is steep, there are still harmful monsters." Yu Haoran nodded. He put the winged tiger into the spirit beast bag and climbed up the cliff first. This cliff is steep, but there are towering trees growing on it, and there are also many elixirs. The 2 of them saw that he had started to climb, and they followed him. The 3 of them crawled and dug for the elixir within their reach. The cliff is steep and the sky is forbidden. There are many mature elixirs, many of which are of the 5th level. The 3 of them simply slowed down and dug while crawling. The forbidden sky was steep and they had to dig for elixirs and defend against monsters. The spiritual energy in the 3 people's bodies was consumed very quickly. When it was almost exhausted, they sat down to recover their spiritual energy before continuing to climb. In this way, the spiritual power in the 3 people's bodies was not only enhanced but also polished to become more solid. Yu Haoran, who was in a happy mood, laughed happily. His idea was right. As long as he climbed up the mountain and left the Juku forest, he would definitely form an elixir. Although the mountains here are not as steep as the mountains over the pool, for some reason, the pressure becomes heavier as they go up, and the speed of the 3 of them becomes slower and slower. 3 people gained more at the same time. Finally, the 3 of them climbed to the top of the mountain a year later. After climbing to the top of the mountain, Yuan looked around and felt a chill in her heart. The mountain here was just as steep as the mountain over there, and she still needed to climb down on foot. It is said that it is easy to go up the mountain but difficult to go down. This time it really challenged the strength of the 3 of them. Yuan was so angry that she cursed in her heart, wondering which pervert set it up. To get out of Juya forest, you still have to climb down from this mountain. Hey, we're not in a hurry. Let's eat something first. After Yuan said that, she took out the 5th level monster meat and utensils from the space, threw them to Mujukan and Yu Haoran and let them barbecue. She moved the tables, chairs, and benches herself. He came out and scooped out 5 cups of monkey wine. So much wasted, they still have to enjoy it. Having worked so hard to get so many out, those monsters are at an advantage. It makes me feel sad just thinking about it. If it were to be auctioned, how many spiritual stones would we have to collect? While Mujukan and Yu Haoran were having a barbecue, Yuan moved Yu Hao and Yu Haoshan out, and by the way, they each contracted a flying winged tiger. So the 5 people sat on the top of the mountain and ate and drank. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 330. Chapter 330, Underground Spiritual Medicine Garden. Big brother, second brother, and third brother have gone out to the Juya forest. Don't let your spiritual pets out. Once they come out, they will go through the thunder tribulation. We have not yet prepared the magic weapon to defend against the thunder tribulation. After eating, when everyone was sitting together, Yuan warned the three of them. The three brothers nodded, and they all touched the flying tigers squatting beside them. They were their spiritual pets, so they would naturally find ways to help them survive the thunderstorm unharmed, and would not be reckless. This extremely ferocious monster became extremely docile after becoming the spiritual pet of a human monk. The three flying tigers also ate some barbecue. They had never eaten such delicious food. It turned out that there was such delicious food in the world. Three of them were still smacking their lips after eating. It would be great if we could have such delicacies every day. Hearing what Yuan said again, they were extremely moved. They also want to get out of the Nine Nether Forest, turn into human form, and eat delicious food with their master every day. You can also follow your master to ascend to the spiritual world in the future. They are already 5th level monsters. Who wants to be trapped in that place, waiting to die of old age? The things that I longed for before will now become a reality. The eyes of the three beasts looking at the five people have become much softer, and the anger of being inexplicably become the spiritual pets has also subsided. They just sat quietly next to the three brothers Yuhairan. What Yuan was thinking was that after going to the immortal realm this time, she would have to buy dozens of spirit animal bags and put them in the space for emergencies. After the five people and three animals had eaten and drank enough, they planned to go down the mountain. This time, Yu Hao and Yu Haoshan insisted on going down with them. Yuan had no choice but to let them go. It was really dangerous, and didn't they have spiritual pets to help them? As long as they pay attention, nothing will happen to them. Since they were going down the mountain this time, the cliff was steep, and they were reluctant to part with the elixir on the cliff, so they went down the mountain more slowly and encountered a lot of trouble. On this day, Yuhairan had just dug a spiritual fruit tree. When the entire spiritual fruit tree was uprooted, a large black hole was revealed. Yuhairan immediately searched with his consciousness, but could not see the bottom. He was frightened and shouted, "Xiao Seer, come and see what is going on." When Yuan heard the shouting, she thought it was Yuhairan who had discovered something, and she immediately climbed over the tree and walked over. This cliff is really too steep. Not only is there a vertical angle of 90 degrees, but there is definitely a vertical angle of 85 degrees. Yuan also took a while to arrive in front of Yuhairan. After she looked towards the dark hole with her consciousness, she also looked at the bottomless black hole stupidly. "Brother, is there a hollow inside this mountain?" Yuhairan nodded. He was surprised when he discovered it. No wonder his sister was so stupid. No one would have thought that such a tall mountain was empty inside. At this time, Mujukan and three other people came over, and the three of them were also surprised after seeing it. "Isn't this amazing?" Yu Haoshan opened his mouth in surprise. They have been practicing immortals for so long, and they have never seen such a magical thing. Such a huge mountain is actually hollow. Someone who had nothing to do came and hollowed out the mountain. It's incredible. What treasure is hidden underneath? A few people looked at it for a long time and decided to leave. The air here is not only restricted but also steep. Otherwise, we would have flown down to see what is below. If we just jumped like this, we wouldn't be smashed to pieces. "Brother, let's go," Yuan shouted. Seeing everyone's reluctance to leave, Mujukan said, "Since we can't get down here, there's no need to worry. Let's go down first and then think of a way. Just dig through the mountain and see if it's okay." A few people's eyes lit up and they all nodded in agreement. At this moment, a strong spiritual energy suddenly emerged from the entrance of the cave. The spiritual energy was so powerful that it instantly collapsed the place where they were standing. Several people were dumbfounded that they collapsed after standing for so long. So the five people and three beasts fell straight down along with the sand, stones, and trees like this. While the few people were falling, they were still able to catch the giant tree that fell with them, but the three monsters were not so smart and fell straight down with howls. With quick eyes and quick hands, Yuan pulled Yu Haoshan, who was closest to him, into the space. Then she quickly used her consciousness to wrap around Yu Haoran and Yu Hao to pull them into the space. Finally, it was Mujukan. At this time, Mujukan saw that she had pulled the three Yu Haoran brothers into the space, and his spiritual consciousness must have consumed a lot. It would be okay if it was normal, but this was a sharp fall, and the consumption of spiritual consciousness could be imagined. No matter what, he did not want Wan'er to consume any more spiritual consciousness. So he sent a message, Wan'er, don't use your spiritual consciousness. I want to test my physical strength. After speaking, he also used his spiritual power to speed up his descent. Yuan scolded her for being a fool, but at the same time her heart felt warm. This man was still feeling sorry for her at this moment. Only when life and death are at stake can the weight of a person in another's heart be reflected. Even if you can save him, he will not let you fall into a desperate situation. Since he doesn't want her to save him, then she should accompany him. Even though Mujukan couldn't control himself while falling, his spiritual consciousness was still available. Seeing that Yuan did not enter the space to slow down his fall, he shouted regardless, Wan'er, enter the space. Yuan pretended not to hear it and let it fall. The two men and the three beasts just fell straight into the ground. Bang 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 bang, there were 5 loud noises, and the 2 people, 3 beasts, and the trees and sand and stones were smashed into the ground. The huge impact caused the 2 people and the 3 beasts to fall into the ground and fainted at the same time. I don't know how long it took. Yuan woke up, spit out the sand and gravel in her mouth, let go of her consciousness, and found that she had been smashed into the underground pit for more than a foot. She moved her body, and she was injured in many places, but she was not seriously injured for the time being. It was just the huge impact that made my head dizzy. After she swallowed a healing pill, she slowly crawled out of the pit after her body recovered. She had to find Mujukan first, and sure enough, a foot away from her, Mujukan was sitting cross-legged in the pit. Yuan was speechless. She could enter her space, but she didn't want to waste her consciousness. She insisted on experiencing a high-altitude jump to test her physical strength. She crawled to the bottom of the pit and sat next to him. Seeing how he was covered in mud and embarrassed, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. She glanced at him with her consciousness. He was so seriously injured that she really wanted to pick him up and beat him up. While Mujukan was recovering from his injuries, she glanced at the 3 winged tigers with her consciousness and saw them lying in the pit, looking like they were about to die. She took Mujukan into the space with a wave of her hand, and climbed up from the pit with a squeaking sound. Find the flying tiger closest to her, climbed down into the pit again, took out a handful of healing elixirs from the space and stuffed it into its mouth, and then used her kung fu to help it dissolve the power of the medicine. End of this chapter.